Welcome into Club Level Sports. I'm Daughtery Crib. Today we're going to be talking about Anthony Richardson and whether or not he's going to be a bust in the NFL. Let us know down below. Do you guys think he's going to be a bust or do you think he's going to be a boom? You think he's going to make an immediate impact, take some time? What do you guys think? Let us know down below. Also, make sure to subscribe to our Club Level Sports YouTube channel. We have it featured on our Tips for Gamers channel, and it's time to light it up. Let's talk about Anthony Richardson's stats for the season. He had 2,500 yards passing, not really good. 53.8% completion percentage, which is abysmal, and I know there's the common theme going around like that. It always happens when some of the numbers are bad for quarterbacks. What do? They blame this or blame that. You're going to hear the same thing that people have been saying is that the wide receivers dropped a lot of passes. Well, let me put it to you this way. Watching this film, there were wide receivers that didn't even have the opportunity to drop the pass. That's how overthrown they were. That's how bad the accuracy was for Anthony Richardson, is that a 10-yard out he was missing, wide open. He was on a 10-yard curl. He's throwing it out of bounds instead of getting to the guy. Wide open, no one around him. And that was a common theme for him. That was one of his consistencies, was overthrowing wide receivers to where they didn't even have a chance. So if someone says that to you in the future and you hear that, just know they didn't watch film. They're repeating what someone else said. Because there ain't no dang way you watch film and you're telling me his wide receivers, the big problem of that is his wide receivers were dropping the ball. There's no way. It's impossible. Okay, 17 TDs, 9 interceptions. Not good. Rushing, not too bad here, 654 yards, 9 TDs. So he was effective in that category. He was more effective in scoring than he was actually, rushing, I would say. And I know those two go hand in hand, but he rushed at times where he shouldn't have rushed. And that's where I'm getting at. We'll go over that more in the future. Now, against Utah, not bad numbers here, but he just defaulted to running when he shouldn't have ran. All right, now Utah's a good team. It was a tough team. He ended up winning, and part of that was because of him rushing for 3 TDs. He was just effective at getting in the end zone, and he had some insane runs, big rushes that were very, very impressive. All right, but on Utah, he could have done better in the passing category by quite a bit. Now, Kentucky had a 40% completion percentage, and no one's saying Kentucky's defense is just absolutely lights out for elite quarterbacks. And he had 0 TDs, 2 interceptions, didn't really rush a lot. It was a tough game for him. Against USF, he struggled there, 55.6% completion percentage, 0 TDs, 2 interceptions. Against Tennessee, this was his biggest numbers here. And he looked good, kind of. He did well to a degree, but he got 54% completion percentage. He threw the ball 44 times and only completed it 24 of the 44. Those numbers, Tennessee's defense is not great. Okay, Tennessee did not do how they did this year because they had a great defense. They did how they did this year because their offense was amazing. Okay, and Hendon Hooker, high hit, those guys lit it up. Tennessee's not known for their defense being just a stellar defense. Even against Alabama, they struggled. Okay, and it was at the end where their offense won them the game. So against Tennessee, he could have had 800 yards passing. Honestly, if you watch the film, he could have had 5-6 TDs, 800 yards passing. I mean, Tennessee gave him a lot to work with, and he just didn't capitalize on it, and he missed an abundance of throws that were just bad. I mean, he's technically 50% that he was going to get you the ball with accuracy. Oh, think about that, 50%. EWU, I don't even know who this team is. I have no idea, but, he threw the ball 10 times. All right, so against Missouri, he did okay. I wouldn't say he did, really bad or really good. You're looking at a 57% completion percentage, and I'm glad he at least got the 80% completion percentage when he only threw 10 times, because if he didn't, I'd be really worried. Against LSU, 60% completion percentage, 1 TD, 0 interceptions. Georgia, 48% completion percentage. Georgia got at him quick with the defensive line, but he missed wide open touchdowns that he could have thrown, and the pressure wasn't there enough for him to miss that pass. And that happened in the game. So that was unfortunate. Against Texas A&M, 60% completion percentage. Against South Carolina, 47% completion percentage. Against Vanderbilt, he threw 400 yards, but he missed an abundance of passes. Okay, an abundance of passes, 59%. Against FSU, his throwing was abysmal. 33.3% completion percentage. That's abysmal completion percentage, and I mean very, very bad. So, these are the stats that we're looking at here. There's some things to like, and then there are other things. Like I keep saying, there's things that I really worry about, particularly going into the NFL, because if your completion percentage is this low in college, chances are it's not going to skyrocket in the NFL. It's going to be worse. Anthony Richardson received a CLS draft grade of 69 out of 100, which indicates that we would draft him higher than Will Levis. Will Levis, we have around a third round later for most teams. Usually you're going to go probably in the fourth round for Will Levis. I know the hype is there. I understand that. I know Anthony Richardson got a lot of hype as well. I'm not saying it's unwarranted. I think Anthony Richardson can be a good quarterback. I do. But I also think that hype train is scary as hell because it goes through everyone's town and it's loud as hell. And everybody can get on because there's a seat for everybody and it's a free ticket. All right? I've been on since Wednesday, bro. When are you getting on? I'm getting on Thursday. Oh, I'll see you there, man. Chest bumps, high fives. Everyone's excited. Be careful with the hype train. All right, be careful with that because the combine, it's amazing. The combine happens. We've been running polls all year long asking who's better, C.J. Stroud or this and that quarterback. Now all of a sudden C.J. Stroud's at the top of so many people's lists, and we are confused because the combine actually changed people's minds on C.J. Stroud. How and in what world? Same thing with Anthony Richardson. Did you see how fast he ran? Did you see how high he jumped? Yeah, you needed the combine to tell you how fast he was. You didn't see him against Utah, maybe Tennessee. You didn't see that? The film didn't tell you anything. That's amazing. Okay, and since when did jumping high indicate that you're going to be a good quarterback? Well, he throws 60 miles per hour in a fastball. That's great. That's fantastic. What about his accuracy? Well, it was good, kind of. I mean, it was good. Okay. That's his deep bomb. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It's interesting. Be careful of that hype train. Now, Anthony Richardson, there's a lot that I liked about him. There's a lot, but also last year, Malik Willis, remember that? He was a first-round pick. He was a clear first-round pick. Everyone needs to draft him on his potential from the so-called experts. And now he's benched for a free agency player named Joshua Dobbs. Malik Willis is a third-string first-rounder, apparently. All these so-called experts wouldn't be raising their hand today saying that, oh, man, he is the guy. Yep, Titans screwed up not drafting him earlier. They didn't. Okay, they weren't going to win with Malik Willis. With that being said, we'll jump into this. We'll go over it. There's a lot that I like about Anthony Richardson. There's a lot that I like. And once again, there's a lot that I'm afraid of. So let's talk about his QB comparison. We got Tim Tebow and Cam Newton. I know there's probably insane comparisons out there about how good he is. Look, he plays like a mixture of both of these guys, right? He's got a little Tim Tebow in him. He's got a little Cam Newton in him. All right, Cam Newton was better than Anthony Richardson. There's no doubt about that, especially coming out of college. He was better than Anthony Richardson. Cam Newton had more accuracy. He has Tim Tebow's accuracy. He has Cam Newton's legs and his ability to lower his shoulder. That's not always a great thing. Okay, so he has a little bit of a mix with him because Tim Tebow also lowered his shoulder, and the dude was a tank. All right, now both of those guys, Tim Tebow and Cam Newton, were a little bit bigger than Anthony Richardson is, but I worry because he does have a little bit of Tim Tebow's accuracy. It's off or on. It's not particularly on. Cam Newton was not known for having spot-on accuracy either, but Cam Newton's accuracy was still better than Anthony Richardson. So when should Anthony Richardson get drafted? We're looking at mid to late second round for teams that are extremely desperate for a quarterback, third round for most other teams. And I understand people are going to get angry at that. They're going to say we have no idea what we're doing and what have you, and that's fine. We'll let time tell. Hey, could he be a great quarterback? Oh, yeah, he can, and we'll go over that. But could he be a guy that you wasted a first-round pick on? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, he can be that too. And you want to be careful of that because a first-round pick is a guy you want an immediate impact. Okay, very short period of time, you want him to be an immediate impact. And I understand, too, people will say, hey, what about Aaron Rodgers? He sat behind Brett Favre, and look, he needed some time to grow. Okay, name 3 other quarterbacks that were in the same situation as Aaron Rodgers and panned out like Aaron Rodgers. Name 3. I'll be waiting forever. Okay, put them in the comments and I'll wait. I'll be glad to wait because it ain't going to happen. And if you really think that Aaron Rodgers needed that much time and couldn't have done better earlier on, then that's shocking to me as well because I believe Aaron Rodgers was going to have issues when he started, but I believe he would have picked it up regardless because it's Aaron Rodgers. There are certain quarterbacks that they're going to pick it up eventually in time, whether it's on the team that drafted him or it's on the team that didn't draft him. Brett Favre got drafted by the Falcons. They didn't see anything in him. Well, Green Bay did, and it panned out for Green Bay. So with Anthony Richardson, there is a lot that I like, and there's a lot that I don't, and the parts that I don't are going to push him back to that mid to late second round and looking at that third round because he is a project player. You are going to have to change a lot in order for him to truly be successful in the league. So let's go over the projected start time. 3 years, okay? And you could go 2 to 3 years around this time, but there is a lot he needs to grow with, and if he doesn't fix a multitude of issues that he has, which we'll cover in this, there's going to be some extreme growing pains that are going to really frustrate the fans and frustrate the franchise and frustrate the players on the team because he is going to miss some open guys that get paid a lot of money to get the ball, and they're not going to be excited about not getting the ball when they're wide open. So let's talk about his leadership and confidence grade. He got a 9 out of 12. There were parts where the team could rely on him and other parts where the team just couldn't rely on him at all. And it usually came in the form of running rather than passing. He would miss open passes, as you saw with his completion percentage. It just wasn't there as bad. And, it left more was like, man, if you just got that to a 65% completion percentage, you would have been so terrifying, and Florida probably would have won a championship. I mean, that's how scary he could be as a quarterback. But the problem is they just couldn't rely on his arm. So he didn't have the leadership in that category. And we do believe that he would have profited from staying another year at Florida. He didn't, so, it is what it is. And his confidence grade and his leadership grade, he gets a little bit higher than what he could have gotten because sometimes he did just say, I'm going to run this ball and I'm going to do it myself, even though there was a wide open guy that he could have just thrown to and protected his body and made it easier on his team. So for Anthony Richardson's decision-making grade, he got an 8 out of 12. And the problem with this is his decision-making looked good on paper. He'd run for a first down and looked really good. You look back and you're like, yeah, do you see that running back who's faster than you, who could have gotten not only that first down, but plenty more, and you could have also protected your body? That's where he got hurt. His decision-making was great at the fact that, like, hey, I could just run for this first, or I could try and run for the touchdown, or I could do something like that. But then what happened was it hurt him because when you looked at it, you said, well, you missed a wide open guy in the end zone. Okay, well, you missed this guy, and it was just painful to watch a little bit because if he did what he could have done and what he should have done, Florida would have been a much, much more terrifying team. And I could say that easily. If Richardson just did better in the areas he needed to do better, Florida would have been very terrifying for the SEC. Let's talk about big game performance here. Big game performance, he got an 8 out of 12. He should have beat Tennessee. The only reason that they did not beat Tennessee is because Anthony Richardson didn't just take what they gave them. Tennessee was willing, and I'm not putting the entire game on Anthony Richardson, but I'm also stating that Anthony Richardson could have won them that game if he just did the routine things that he needed to do. He missed opportunities that Tennessee just blatantly gave him, okay? And that was on him. Yeah, the defense could have done better. There is no question. Alabama's defense could have done better against Tennessee. You needed to beat Tennessee not by your defense beating them up, but by your offense being effective. Okay? And Anthony Richardson did not win them the game when they should have won them the game. And there's no other real big game that it was like, wow, he played so good against this big game that we got to give him a high grade. He didn't. He just didn't. So his big game performance, he got an 8 out of 12. So for Anthony Richardson's longevity score, he got a 7 out of 11. The longevity is a concern. He takes some dumb hits, and he got banged up on countless occasions from taking dumb hits. And it's great that you can take these hits, and Will Levis has the same philosophy. I'm going to lower my shoulder and just try to run through you. That is a great philosophy for a small period of time, because that's what's going to happen. Look at King Henry. Everyone thinks that Derrick Henry is some power halfback. He's not. He's an elusive halfback. King Henry knows, at least in my opinion, I think he wants to last the sands of time, and that's on his mind a lot, is longevity. He wants to be in the league for a while, and he plays like it. He keeps you away from his body. He's known for his stiff arms. He's not known for lowering his shoulder and dragging 3 dudes. That's not Derrick Henry. Okay, he's going to stiff arm you. He's going to try to sidestep you. He's going to try to use his speed to evade you. Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, that is not their philosophy. They have the Deontay Foreman philosophy, and Deontay Foreman is a different beast than these other guys, and so you need to be careful with that philosophy, because that is what makes Anthony Richardson is his legs. And if you get banged up enough to where that is not you, people are not going to fear your 53% completion percentage. I can promise you that. They're not going to fear that. They want you to not run. Okay? Don't fall into that. Anthony Richardson, please change the way you take hits. Please. Because you will not last the sands of time if you continue doing what you're doing. Anthony Richardson's total arm value was not good. 7 out of 11. His completion percentage of 53% shows how good it actually is. It's so interesting with him because he will hit a 50-yard deep bomb with the cornerback on the hip of the receiver, and it's a perfect pass. Beautiful. It's magical almost. And then he will just miss the easiest check down routes that are 10 yards away from him by huge margins. Okay. Uncatchable passes that are just abysmal. And that's what I worry is just the inconsistency at which he throws the ball. He's just not consistent. You can't prove otherwise. There is no game that you're going to look at and say, this was consistent passing above 10 passes. The most consistent games that he had in passing is when he only threw it 10 times, not when he threw it 40 times or 30 times. When you saw him throw in abundance, you saw him miss in abundance. And that's something I worry about. His accuracy is just bad. If he fixes his decision-making, that's one thing, but you got to be able to hit a guy that's wide open on a check down route. I mean, that's basic quarterback play. You got to be able to do that. And if you can't do that, I'm concerned. I am very concerned. Now, Anthony Richardson's pocket control, honestly, needs a lot of work. Offensive line for Florida was not the best. They did have some really good guys on the offensive line, but it wasn't the best. Teams would blitz them and try and rattle Anthony Richardson. Now, one thing that he did that was frustrating, and it had to have been so frustrating for his offensive coordinator, and I mean just head-scratching, but palm to the face frustrating. There'd be a clean pocket. No danger whatsoever. Clean pocket. And he would just start rolling out. He would just evade the pocket entirely, and it was like, what are you doing? And the time he's taken to do that, he's missing a wide open guy. Or he'd go run for a first with a clean pocket, and he'd miss a 40-yard pass for 10 yards. It didn't make any sense. Okay? There are other times where he'd evade the pocket, and the offensive lineman who was blocking perfectly before has to hold the defensive lineman in order to stop a sack from happening, and then he'd get a penalty, and then they blame it on the offensive line and say, well, it was the offensive line's fault. Well, what do you expect him to do? Just to sack his quarterback who's not really paying attention to what's going on? That was an issue for me. I did not like seeing that, and if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm dreading that. And you got to work on that, Anthony Richardson. You got to work on not evading the pocket when there's no need. The pocket's there for a reason, man. Those big offensive linemen are doing their job, and you got to let them do their job and take advantage of it. But if you're spending your time rolling out of a clean pocket and missing wide open wide receivers down the field, dude, that's a problem. And it's not even like he ran out of the pocket because the wide receivers were covered. No, he just ran out of the pocket. It's his default. That's what he does. He's like, hey, I got to evade right now. Why? For what reason? So that's a problem, and I don't like it, and I hope they can coach him up and change that. Looking at his consistency, he got a 7 out of 11. I'm sure you guys already know by now from hearing the stuff that you've heard from, and maybe if you've watched film, he's consistently going to be inaccurate. That is a consistency of his. He's going to consistently try to use his legs, maybe on times where he shouldn't use his legs. Other times it's going to be spectacular. It's going to be amazing. He'll run a 60-yard run that's just like, wow, that was amazing. So his consistency, he took a hit because he just doesn't have a consistently good game play week in and week out, and he's not consistent as a quarterback. So his reaction time, there were things that were impressive with his reaction time. Not in the sense of throwing the ball, more in the sense of like if there was a guy in his face, that he would react in a way that was like, wow, that was impressive. Like a guy would have him dead to rights, and he's just like, boom, I'm throwing the ball, and he sometimes get it into a perfect window, and it was like, wow, that was impressive. And then, his reaction time to like breaking down the progressions and realizing when a wide receiver is going to be open, that's where it was hindered. Okay. He wasn't like, oh, the guy's going to be open now. Boom. And his reaction time was great on that. It was like if a guy broke free and Anthony Richardson looks to the right and the guy's in his face, it was like how he reacted quickly to that was impressive. Not all the time, but there were times where I was incredibly impressed. So he could get better at his reaction time of going through his progressions and kind of the decision-making, looking at the decision-making and then reacting towards that decision-making. So it kind of goes hand in hand there. But yeah, his reaction time, interesting, I would say. There was things I liked, things I did not like. So looking at the scrambling ability, he got an 8 out of 9. The problem with him is not running for a first down. The problem with him is that doesn't make him perfect at it, is he doesn't use his legs to buy time to throw for, to wide receivers that have broken open. Okay. He doesn't do that enough. That's what can make him perfect. So he's great at running that first, but man, he could have a little bit more Patrick Mahomes in him to where he kind of scrambles out and he's like, yeah, be careful. I might run for that first, or I actually might throw a 60-yard deep bomb for a touchdown. That's where he needs to do better. Just running for a first or trying to punch it in within 5 yards to a touchdown, he's got that. He just needs to work on that extra layer to make him truly the best scrambling type quarterback, a true dual threat quarterback. So where can he improve? Well, basically it's his football confidence, his accuracy, decision making, taking smarter hits and going through his progressions more to take what the defense gives him. I know it sounds like a lot, but those are the things he needs to work on. He doesn't need to work on how fast he is or any of that. He needs to work on scrambling at smarter times. He needs to work on just letting the defense dictate what he can do and take advantage of that. So hopefully you guys like this video, and I hope Anthony Richardson has a good career and does fix these things, because there's a lot to like from him. And I think he can be a really good QB, and then it was tough. It was tough. Really tough watching his film because there's things I loved and things I did not.